So I figured since we don't have a lot of video reviews of this, and you know, it's fairly new out there, Eric Gogo, you're the shit, man. A lot of research you've done for us to help us get faster on our bikes. Little background behind me. I live in Wisconsin. I take frequent trips to the mountains, a couple track days a year. I ride the living hell out of my bike, and I know everybody says they ride their Super Dukes and they beat the shit out of them, but do you really? So the very first thing on any bike that I have is the suspension. So my first gen had a suspension. My third gen, I took a trip to the track on a stock suspension. I figured out what the weak points, what the strong points were of it. Kind of got used to it a little bit as I was waiting. I ended up going with an Olin's TTX GP. Fast Bike Industries down in North Carolina hooked me up. It's an Andriani made shock that I had to get sent over from Italy. Now I had a couple issues with the shock originally. The hydraulic adjuster, I had to move down 12 millimeter because I couldn't get within my sag. And then I had to have the rebound revalved in and go up 2 shim stacks to fit me. I'm a 290, 300 pound power lifter. So you get that. With the front 4 cartridges, I went with GP. Awesome company to deal with. I had springs that were way too stiff for me. I couldn't get any more than about 27 millimeters of front sag, regardless of how I sat on the bike. I wanted it about 40 front, 30 rear. The owner of Kyle Racing suggested that to start off. That's what I've usually run on most of my other bikes. Everything has turned out fairly well. I ended up switching out their 1.1 spring because they gave me 2 1.1s for a 1.1 and a 1.5. And my sag's absolutely flawless on here. I've got really good range of travel. This mark right here is where the forks actually bottom out without the springs. I've been anywhere from about a ½ inch above it at the very most, riding the Dragon's Tail for a week down in the mountains, to up a little bit more. So I'm using all my travel pretty good. As you can see, my front tires, that's all street. That's no track on these. There's nothing left on my front tires. This is the rear that I just took off. There's about 800 miles on it. If you look closely at it, there's a little bit of sandy texture on there. I mean, if I was on a track and I wasn't on a tight ass road like the Dragon's Tail, probably be a little bit worse, but 800 miles, it came off. So as you can see, I beat the shit out of my bike. I need a little bit more out of it than what I had. So I went ahead, and after talking to Eric and lots of people, I bought his superlink instead of just the regular linkages he's got. My point behind that would be 20 millimeter with an increase on his other ones that aren't the superlink. I need some adjustability. If I decide to change the sprockets on here and I need to adjust my back end, I need to know that I can keep my ride height pretty steady. So the adjustable ones, obviously, you can see that, let it zoom in. Need to be able to, if I can't use that, it's kind of a waste of money. But the one thing that I noticed over this bike versus the first gen is this bike holds a fucking corner. The first gen, I always felt like I was fighting. It didn't matter how much I did to it. I had nitrons front, nitron rear on that. Bike was fucking awesome, but it always missed what this bike has. Corners down in the mountains that I had issues with before, I'd always run wide, I'd always get tired, my palms would always hurt from pushing on the bars and giving it feedback. I got absolutely none of that on this. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens when I add this link and it tips in a little bit faster. Unfortunately, I don't have any more track days this year, but I do have another 7-day trip down to the Smoky Mountains planned for 2 weeks from now. Knee surgery shortly after, so I'm not quite sure how much more I'm going to ride this year, but I got a bunch of track days planned. The earliest one is March in Alabama. So let me get this on and I'll give you guys a little walkthrough of what you're going to do and how easy it is and kind of rate it. But right, the quality of this is fucking awesome. He did a really good job designing these. These almost look like OEM bearings that are in there. The seals are there. It's pretty much a unbolt some shit and play. So let me get to that. And you've got 3 bolts down here. The one's a 18 millimeter nut on the other end. These are 13 millimeter on this side. And then you've got one right through here. That comes out and that pulls that linkage out. What I usually do to pull the back end off my bike, instead of using my lift, my rear stand, I'll throw a flat lift underneath the exhaust on here. I still have the stock exhaust. It does not move when I do this. A lot of people are freaked out about it, but it doesn't. Front tires in there. Pulls the back end off. It gives me enough wiggle room. So let me go ahead and pull these bolts out quick. So as you can see, them are pretty easy, on and off, couple minutes, that comes off. So I did have to lift this back end up just to get a little bit more room to pull the linkage out. The one thing that it doesn't say, I didn't look at his website yet, I'll probably do that in a minute to see, is there's an arrow right here. Does that point towards the front of the bike or back of the bike? So I'm gonna have to look quick. So everything looks great, fits great. Quality seems to be fairly decent. Don't forget to use your sleeve that's inside and the bushings, spacers, haha, that go on the outside. So now to set this thing up. So what I did is I measured from center of my axle up to a point on here with a piece of tape, millimeters. So 600 millimeters is what the stock ride height from the area that I chose was. I added the superlink, I went up to 672. So that's an increase of about 19 millimeters. So I'm looking to start at about 20 millimeters of increased ride height in the back. On my Gen 1, I ended up at just under 25 most of the time, 24, 25, somewhere around there, depending on where the chain was. That bike tipped in, handled like a fucking animal. This bike is way better without that raised up in the back. So I'm really curious to see what this will do. For now, GP cartridges at the stock height. There's 2 lines showing. The rest of this is the cap from the GP. Trying to go for a little ride tonight. I really don't have anything curvy around me, so I'm going to kind of play a little bit, see how it feels, just feel it out. The 4th of September, I'm going to be down in the mountains for 7 days riding. So that's going to be the real test of this. I'll probably play with ride height a little bit. I know Eric races usually around 30, 33 millimeter raise in the back. This bike's going to get a lot more street use than it is track use. So I'll probably end up somewhere around 25 to 28 is my guess. I'm hoping it works out well. I'll just keep dialing it back, adjusting it until I find what I feel feels the best on the high speed stuff and the tight stuff. I'm a tight and technical kind of guy, so I don't care too much about the high speed. I want corners that reduce radius, I want corners that are cambered, I want corners that are banked. So that's what I wanted this bike for. It's definitely not a sport bike, but it's fun. I'll make another video with a review after I actually get this out. Go for a little ride on it, actually get to do some corners, see what happens. Again, I set the back at 20 millimeters after this. I'm sure it's going to be very, very noticeable. But yeah, give me a like, give me a follow. I'll post up some more videos. I'm always modifying bikes. I'm always working on bikes. I'm always changing tires. Any questions, comments, suspension questions, anything, feel free to shoot me a message. I've been doing this for a while. Got it on pretty well. Superduke related, definitely send me a message if you need some help. I'll try and help where I can. I'm pretty well rounded in these. But thanks for watching.